Good afternoon, welcome to lesson 4-5 and topic 4, where we're talking about solving equations. Today is your last lesson in this topic. It was a short one, but today we're going to be talking about problem solving and drawing a picture to write an equation for multiplication and division problems. So last class we talked about how to write an equation using multiplication and division problems, and today we're going to talk about drawing a picture, so hopefully that's a strategy that can help you. And even just looking back through the lessons, we've talked about addition and subtraction, writing an equation, and then we drew a picture to help with that, solving the equations and creating the equations. Today, we're just going to look back on yesterday's lesson and see if we can create pictures to help us solve the equations. So without further ado, let's go ahead and just get started. So go ahead and follow along with me in your notes. Even if it's hard to see up here, just kind of listen along. You can see where we're going to be looking at, and this is just for you to have your problems in front of you anyways and just make it a little bit simpler. So, before we start though, let's review what this bar diagram tells us. This line segment at the top, what I want you to do is just put a line coming out and just label it. What does the top, that line segment represent? Well, that represents the total. So whatever your problem or whatever your equation is going to end up, that top line, it just represents the total. It's the whole amount. So what do the sections of the bar represent? Well, if you look in here, when we're talking about multiplication and division, these are equal sections. So these are equal sections, and these are going to add up to the total. So that's just kind of a quick review. This line segment on top is the total, it's the whole. And each of these sections, in this case, are equal, and all of these together will combine to make the total. So let's look at the first question that we have typed here in our notes. It says, Ava saves $20 per month for 3 months. How much has she saved at the end of the third month? Make a bar diagram to represent this problem. Use it to help you write an equation, and then we're going to solve the equation. When you're solving a word problem, you can kind of think through a couple steps in your head. So step 1, what we're going to think is just stop and underline the important information. So what do we know? Well, we know that Ava saved $20 per month for 3 months. So we know that Ava saved $20 a month. And how long did she keep this up? For 3 months. So go ahead and fill in those blanks in your notes. We know that Ava saved $20 a month, and we also know that she did this for 3 months. Now step 2, we want to apply the information to a bar diagram. Well, in this case, I went ahead and I put the bar diagram that we're going to use. We don't have to divide it into sections or do anything like that. But if we were creating our own, you would create your line segment, and again, that represents the total. So this is how much she saved over the 3 months. Then we have to create the parts, the equal sections that are going to add up to the total. In this case, it was over 3 months, so we created 3 sections to our bar. And now we're going to apply that information. So Ava saved $20 per month. So how much is each of these sections worth? Each month is worth $20. Now, at the top, this is our total. The total is still unknown. That's what the question's asking us overall. So at the top, since it's an unknown value, I'm going to put a variable. And my variable I'm going to put is S. I'm going to put S because it's how much she saved, and that's just going to be something that's easy for me to remember. So we applied all of this information to the bar diagram. And again, step 3, what does S represent? What is the main goal of this problem? We're trying to figure out how much she saved total. So what does S represent? It's just the total. It's over 3 months, how much did she end up saving? Now, what equation can we write from our diagram? And again, remember, the diagram is just telling a story. The equation is telling a story. The word problem tells us the story. It's all just different ways to say that story. So what equation can we write from our diagram? Well, we could say that S divided by 3 equals 20. Now, why would I say S divided by 3 equals 20? Well, if we take our total, S, and then we divided it into 3 sections, we knew that each section was worth 20. So when we take S and divide it among 3, we're going to get $20 in each section. Another way that you could look at this is with multiplication, because remember, multiplication and division are inverse of each other. They're the opposite. So I could also look at this problem, and I could say, well, 3 times 20 will give me S. So, or 3 times 20 equals S. And step 5 is going to be to solve our equation. So how much did Ava save? Because remember, we can set this up, we can set up our equation, but if we don't answer the question that it's asking, we're not going to get the full points. So how much did she save at the end of the 3rd month? So by the end of the 3rd month, using either one of these equations, I can solve that. Let's start with the division one that we did. So in this case, we have S divided by 3. We know that that's going to give us equal sections of 20. So remember, to get the variable by itself, we do the inverse of the operation that's being done to it. So in this case, S divided by 3, I'm going to do the opposite. So it's S times 3. That times 3 cancels out. But I also have to remember that what I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. So now I have S equals 20 times 3. And that ends up bringing us to the equation that we came with up over here. So now S equals 20 times 3. What's 20 times 3? Well, that's going to give us 60. So in the end, Ava ended up saving $60. Let's take a look at this thought to consider down there at the bottom of your PBIL section, though, just to make sure that we have things cleared up. This thought to consider: how would the diagram and equation change if Ava saves $20 each month for 6 months? Well, in this case, since she's saving for 6 months, then there would be 6 sections. There would be 6 sections to our bar diagram. It would be 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, right? There would be additional sections because these were representing the months. And our new equation, instead of S divided by 3 equals 20, it would be S divided by 6 equals 20. And ultimately, once we multiply 6 by the same side to get S by itself, it's going to end up being S equals 20 times 6. So that's what we're getting into today. That's just kind of a brief overview of how we can apply a bar diagram to an equation and a word problem and making them easier to answer. So let's go ahead, flip to your guided practice section, and we're going to take a look at a few problems together. Here's your first guided practice problem. If you can't read this on the board, that's fine. It's in your notes in your journal. So here we go. Carson and his 4 friends had a garage sale to help pay for their DC trip. They divided their total earnings so that each person had $37. How much was the total earnings from the garage sale? So what I did here was I listed out a few step-by-step things that we can do. The first thing is, whenever you have a word problem, you've got a few questions to ask yourself. And the first thing is, what do I know? So again, we're going to underline the important information. So we know that there's Carson and his 4 friends. And what they're doing is they're having a garage sale. And another important thing is that each person had $37. So there's Carson and his 4 friends, and each person's ending up with $37. What is it asking you to find? What's the overall much was the total earnings from the garage sale. So we know from this that our line segment is going to be the unknown because it's asking what's the total earnings. So what I'm going to put here is I'm going to use just x as my variable. And I'm going to have to divide his total earnings with his friends into equal sections. And here's a little tip that I put in your notes. Go ahead and read that with me. It says, you know, this is a multiplication or division problem because the problem involves several equal amounts that make up a whole. Right? So each person has $37. These are equal parts to make up this total. So when we divide up this bar that we have, we are going to look and see Carson and his 4 friends. Just because there's a 4, it doesn't mean that we're going to divide this bar into 4 sections. Now, why would that be? Well, if we look, it's Carson and his 4 friends. So there's 5 people that we're considering here, and they're each getting $37. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to divide it up into 5 equal sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's not very equal. So about as equal as you can get. Just kind of show that. Now we have 5 sections for the 5 friends total, and each person is getting $37. So each of my sections is worth $37. So now from this, I can find my answer. Because all I'm going to do is I'm going to take x, I'm going to write mine up here, but write yours below. Write x divided by 5 equals 37. So I'm going to take x, my total, and when I divide it among the 5 different sections, each person is going to end up with $37. So it's telling the same story. It's x divided into 5 sections. Each person ends up with $37. So now to solve this equation, we want to get x by itself. And remember, we're going to do the inverse of the operations already being done, so we're going to multiply by 5. That cancels out the dividing by 5, but remember, we have to do what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So now, x equals 37 times 5. 7 times 5 is 35. 3 times 5 is 15, plus the other 3 is 185. So these friends ended up making $185. How could I double check this problem? How could I confirm and make sure that I'm getting the right answer? Well, if I plug in 185 to my original equation, because I'm saying that this is equal to x, once I plug this in, if it checks out and ends up with 37, then we're right. So in order to check this, I would plug in 185 divided by 5 and make sure that that is equal to 37. Don't just go and put a check mark and say, yes, oh good, we're good. Make sure you actually solve it, because if you don't solve it, you're not actually checking your work, you're just pretending. So go ahead, make sure that you have these notes, and what I want you to do is take a look at your next guided practice problem and see if you can solve that on your own. Use the same strategies here, look back at this problem or the PBIL and see if you can piece it together and see what you need to do. So pause the tape and do that now, and I will jump back in and explain the problem in detail. Hopefully you had a chance to answer this question on your own and show all your work. I'm going to go through just quickly and we're going to check it out and see how you did. So just confirm your work along with mine. Remember, when we're reading a word problem, the first thing to do is find the important information. What is the problem already telling us? Ryan made a CD of his favorite songs. There are 42 minutes of time on the CD. He records 14 songs. What is the average length of each song? If I want to go and set up a bar diagram to solve this problem now, I have my line segment. In my line segment, remember, this is the total number. On the CD, he has 42 minutes. So now that I know that's my total, I'm going to see what my bar down below is broken into. How many sections? Well, he recorded 14 songs, and we're looking for the average length. So it's all going to be an equal number. So I need to take this bar and divide it into 14 sections. So 2, 3, So pretend that these are about as equal as you could get. And now, do I know what the average length of each song is? Well, no, I don't. So this is going to be my variable. So last time we had the variable as our total. This time we're switching it up a little bit. So now we have 42 is going to be our total. So 42 equals something. Well, we have 14 sections, so it's 14 times what? Well, since this is the same value, it's the same x, it's the length of each song, and it's the average length, it's going to be 42 equals 14 times x, because it's x, it's the average length of a song, 14 times. So 42 equals 14x. Now my next step is I'm going to need to solve this. I need to tell them what the average length of each song is. So now to get the variable by itself, I do the inverse operation. And I'm going to be left with 42 divided by 14 equals x. Now when I solve this equation, I'm going to end up with 3 equals x. Because that's going to be the average. So now, in order to check this, I need to plug in what I think x is to my original equation. So now I'm going to put 42 equals 14 times 3. And to check this, I could just set this up quickly. 14 times 3, 4 times 3 is 12. 1 times 3 is 3, plus 1 is 4. 42, so we checked out. So the average length of each song is 3 minutes. Go ahead now, and what I would like you to do is rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5 and tell me in specific detail what you may or may not have understood about the lesson. Then we will clear it up in class, and I will see you tomorrow.